So Brian, Brian Crecente, you want like to present yourself, and we'll go from there, man. Because it's been a long time. Been a long
Yes,
time.
my name is Brian Crecente, and for those of you who maybe don't know me, I have been covering video games for quite a long time. I founded Kotaku and co-founded Polygon, and then after I was there for a while, I went on to be the video games editor for Rolling Stone, and then I was a video games editor for Variety. And now I am a consultant. I sort of split my time between several different companies, doing sort of behind the scenes consulting and some writing. I also do a little bit of journalism still, but sort of have my hands in a lot of pots. I don't think that's the way that phrase goes, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. How long you been writing?
Uh, God, a really long time. I
Hmm.
mean, gosh, probably what we're in 2001. Like I don't know, close to 30 years, probably.
Wow, wow, that's a long
Yeah.
time, man. Do you miss it though, getting that full time part of it, or you'd rather just do it on the side once in a while?
Yeah, I mean, a part of me does. Like, so before I did game journalism, I was a newspaper reporter and I covered crime, and I did that for like 15 years. So yeah, I've been daily reporter. I did that for gosh, 25 or so years, 26 years, and
Hmm.
part of me does. But I also have to say I enjoy working on sort of longer, bigger things, which is some of the stuff I'm doing right now with consulting, and was kind of doing near the end of like working at Polygon and some other sites. So I kind of enjoy things that are like months long projects
Hmm.
where I'm examining things, and that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you know what, Brian? Like, I have to mention this because I think we never really talked about this from back in the days. There was some problems that we had in the past. I think I said some stupid during a panel, and ever since then,
I don't remember. I don't
do you
know even.
remember?
I'm,
No,
I'm
no.
not even kidding. I have no idea what you're
It
talking
was it
about.
was something about sourcing. I can't remember exactly what it was because you know what it is, as an independent content creator. Sometimes sites will take some news from smaller sites or from smaller content creators, and they wasn't giving they weren't like sourcing them at that time,
Right,
right? So I at the time I got mad and I said, man, I don't know why Kotaku didn't source it. Like I said something like that, whatever. And ever since then, like we haven't really been talking for years. But I'm glad that we're talking now because I was like, man, I gotta mention that to Brian because I'm glad that we're talking again. Because we used to talk a lot back in the early days.
Yeah,
So.
no, I honestly don't. I so many people have said bad things about me.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of them, so that's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whatever. I'm sure we probably screwed up, and I know over the years, like I've always tried to evolve, and
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to forget the size of the site that you're running. I know, like Kotaku, we went through this whole thing where I just didn't realize that Kotaku had gotten really big because it started out really small,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there were things I did that I didn't even mean to like exert
Mm-hmm.
pressure or whatever because I had no idea. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
no big deal.
Good, good. So let me ask you, when was it you felt like, oh my god, this website is getting big? Was there a story or something that stood out to you? You think?
It was weird. It was like little things where like I would go to an event and people would like stop and like want to talk to me, and I was like,
It was like
"That's weird."
why? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like I got stuff to do. I mean, I would talk to them, but it was just strange.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that came to a head where I remember there was one event I went to where people actually were asking for my autograph, and I was like, this is weird.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not used to this. And like I remember, gosh, when The Simpsons came out, when EA was working on The Simpsons, they created this whole website for the video game, and before it came out as like marketing, and so it had all these different pages inside it, and one of the pages was for Moe's Tavern, but I think he had like he was creating his own website in this website,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called Motaku, and I thought that was hilarious. I was like, oh my
That's
god,
cool.
they're talking about us.
You know what? I remember that. I think I'm actually remember that marketing website, man. But
Yeah, it was
it
very cool.
was it something like that, like little things like that stood out to you? Like, you know what? instead of doing journalism, let me just start doing consulting work because that's a something new for you, right? So.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so the consulting thing, what sort of happened was when I was at Kotaku, I was working for someone else. I didn't own Kotaku. I was working for Gawker Media. Nick Denton owned Gawker Media and owned the site. And when I went over to help form Polygon with a group of like six or so other editors and a really talented team of writers,
Mhm.
I didn't have ownership there. Um, and when I like was trying to figure out what I wanted to do at Polygon, I was like, I kind of thought, I enjoy helping to create these websites, but it is on some level, it's like just so soul killing because you're working, 13, 14-hour days. You basically have to start from scratch. You have to build up all this stuff. It's just so much effort. And I was like, it's just not worth it. I'm building these. I mean, I was getting paid, obviously, but I was like helping to create these sites that go on to make, I'm assuming, millions and millions of dollars, and I wasn't seeing any of that.
Mhm.
Um, and so I kind of was like, I promised myself at Polygon, I'm like, I'm never going to do this again unless I have ownership. And then Rolling Stone came to me, and I was like, oh, I can't say no to Rolling Stone because that's
Mhm.
like,
That's pretty big. Yeah. Yeah.
Rolling Stone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I was like, of course I'm gonna come. So I came and I went there and I helped them. They had launched a site and they weren't happy with it, so I helped them kind of organize it and get it back on its feet. And then the company that owned Variety bought Rolling Stone, and the guy who Jay, I think Penske from Penske Media,
Mhm.
like came and had all these meetings with me. We talked for like 2 hours, and he was like, "Look, I want you to stay on at the company, but I want to move you off of Rolling Stone because I want Rolling Stone to focus on Rolling Stone. I really want to get them back to the core, and I want you to go over to Variety and set up something for Variety because they should be covering video games. It's crazy they don't cover video games."
Mhm.
And it was like the same thing. It's like Variety's been around since movies have been around. And like, again, I was like, I keep promising myself I'm not going to do another one, but I'm like, it's so hard to say no.
Yeah.
And so I went to Variety, and I was there. How long was I there? I think I was there for like a year and a half, and then they just called me in and were like, we're laying you off. We're gonna we're gonna keep covering video games, but not to the extent that we were, because I was building it up as like a big thing. I wanted. When I went there, I had this big conversation with them where I'm like, I don't want to cover video games as service to anything else. So I don't want to go there and only write about video games when it has something to do with movies or TV, because
Mhm.
video games are as important as movies and TV. So the only way I'll do this is if you let me cover it like you're covering movies. And they were like, "Yes." But then a year later they're like, "No. we don't
Mm.
we don't want to do it this way anymore." So they
Yeah.
laid me off. And so I looked around a little bit and talked to some people about maybe starting my own thing, but I just couldn't find a way to do it that I'd be happy. I didn't want to start off with just me. And I didn't want to start off with like me and interns or something. I really wanted to like get it going with a lot of funding, and I
Mhm.
couldn't find the funding I wanted in the way I wanted it. So I was like, I needed to make a living. So I started looking around, and fortunately, um, the Lego group came to me, and so I'd been bugging people at the Lego group for like 6, 7 years about doing a big feature on Lego video games,
Mhm.
because Lego Star Wars was so amazing when it came out, and they kept like TT Games kept having these amazing hits that were hitting one after the other, and I was like, I want to do a big feature on you guys, and they kept saying, no, no, it's not the right time. So after I left Variety, they came to me and they're like, look, we're getting ready to celebrate our 25th anniversary, and what would you think about coming, doing consulting for us, and we'd have you sort of research our history of video games. um, and so I ended up doing that. I'm still doing it, but I ended up doing that for like more than a year. And I ended up interviewing hundreds of people for them, all for their archives, and like unearthing all of these amazing stories going back 25 years.
Mhm.
And at some point, they were like trying to figure out what to do with it externally, and they're like, "Why don't we do a podcast?" So now I'm working with this really talented documentarian named Ethan Vincent, and we're the two co-hosts, and we basically interview people and then we produce it and turn it into sort of like an audio documentary that comes out every week. And I have some other, like I do work for some other people as well, but that's sort of a big part of what I'm doing. But it's like it's really fun 'cause, like I spend all this time, like I spent a year just doing research on Lego video games, and all that's
Nice.
now in an archive for the company, which is
Yeah,
so cool.
I listened to the first episode. It's really good. I was like, the production
Thank you.
is really awesome, really good, great information. But what was one thing that you feel like stood out to you that you found out during the research that you had no idea
Oh man,
for
there were
this?
like so many. The Minecraft, which is our first episode,
Mm-hmm.
when I
Yeah.
found that out, I was like, "What?" I was like, "A, I can't believe." So the story is that if you don't know this, basically, uh, the Lego Group and Notch, who was the guy who created Minecraft, at some point got together, and Notch started development on a basically a game that was going to be all Lego bricks, and a Minecraft game. So it was going to be a Minecraft game with Lego bricks, and then it was going to have theme sets in it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the deal just completely. They actually had built. I actually have played the prototype of it,
Mm-hmm.
and things were humming along, and just Notch basically got tired of all the rules that he had to follow and all the lawyer agreements and everything, and he just pulled the plug and walked away from the deal. And
Wow.
nobody ever talked about it. Like that's what shocks me, that it never leaked out or anything. It was just this secret.
Yeah. Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy!" Like,
I know, right?
I've never seen this like in the news or anything like that. So it was interesting hearing this for the first time. So that's the cool part about podcasting too. Like, you sit back, just chill, relax, listen to it. So I can't wait to listen to the rest of the episodes. It's really good, man. Really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we I think the one that just hit this week is about TT Games and its whole history, which has a lot of things that like we ended up talking to Tom Stone, who's one of the founders. He's retired now,
Hmm.
and like just living his life. And I actually, the first time I interviewed him, I think the day after his last day of work. So that was a really that's not in the podcast. That's an earlier interview I did, but that was just a fun conversation because here's this guy who like if you should listen to the podcast, it's really a fascinating story about how it happened. But like, he had a I think those games had a huge impact, not just on the Lego Group and Star Wars, but like on family games. Like,
Hmm.
have you ever played any of those games?
Oh yeah, I played the Batman. Was it
Yeah,
Batman it was like a Batman game from Lego,
yeah.
Star Wars, Harry Potter. Yeah, I played a lot of those because they would send me codes all the time to try it out. So, but yeah, they were really good, really, really good. I
Yeah,
had a
and
great
like
time.
and I remember like playing with my son, like he
Hmm.
was the perfect age, and so he grew up playing all these games with me, and it was like, before that, if there were games that you tried to play with your kids, they were usually not very good games. They just didn't make good games for kids back then.
Hmm.
Um, and then on top of that, all the games that were based on movies were just terrible. And so suddenly this company comes along that nails both of them, and it's like it's not even like you're playing the game to spend time with your son. You're actually really enjoying the game, plus you're spending time with your son or your daughter or whoever you're playing with. So it was like, anyway, so yeah, talking to Tom Stone was like amazing. It was it's just the only thing I didn't like about that first year was that I was coming across all these things and I couldn't tell anybody. And it was like that's how you torture a journalist, because I was
Yes.
just like, "Oh my god, all of this is amazing."
Yeah. Yeah. That's Is this like a weekly thing or how the like the release is like once a month or what for the Lego
No, it's
podcast?
weekly.
Weekly.
Yeah, so it started in, I think our first episode was the beginning of January, and right now the last one is going to be the end of March. And
Okay.
yeah, it's weekly. And yeah, some of them, well, it's sort of a mix. Some of them are like these deep documentaries, like with the first episode, and some of them are ones that we call conversations, where it's more like this, where
Mm-hmm.
we interview. So like next week, where we interviewed someone at Sega and someone at the Lego Group about the announcement that actually hit today about the Lego Sonic thing that's coming out.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
I
they're
didn't I didn't even know that today. I haven't really
yeah, so
checking
they
on it.
announced today that they're coming out. They've started work on a set, a Lego set that's going to feature Sonic the Hedgehog, which is super cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great collab, honestly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Really cool. Yeah,
I'm very
another
excited.
another thing I noticed too, you're a huge horror fan. I know you
Yes,
have a horror podcast, and I have a couple questions about horror. So, what is
yes.
first of all, what's the name of your podcast? the podcast?
It's called Long-Legged Beasties.
Okay. So how long you been doing it now?
We've been doing it for like 8 months. It's with Susan Arndt. I don't know if you remember her. She
Susan.
back in the
Susan.
day she ran. Well, she let's see. She's worked at Joystick, and she worked at The Escapist. So she spent a lot of time in game journalism,
Mm-hmm.
and it just turns out we knew each other. But it turns out she's a huge horror movie buff, and I'm a huge horror movie buff, and
Yeah.
so it's got a funny sort of story about how it came about. When I was doing all this Lego research, I was doing a lot of transcription work and like stuff that you don't really have to 100% focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was watching a ton of horror movies, which I love. And it got to the point where I was like, I kept running into movies that I'd already seen. And I was like, this is driving me nuts. So I created a spreadsheet. I was like, I'm just going to make a spreadsheet of every horror movie I've seen. And then I was like, oh, I'll add the movies I really want to see because there's like these big gaps where I hadn't seen some. And I started getting really sort of obsessed with this spreadsheet where I was like, oh, I need to really build this out. So I kept making it bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And then I tweeted about it, and all these people were looking at it, and they're like, holy shit. Because it was like, at one point, I think it was when it hit about 1,000 movies, and people were like, oh my God, there are a lot of movies on here. And you've seen too many of these movies. And so Susan and I started talking about it, and someone on Twitter was like, "You should go back and you should classify all the movies." And I was like, "That's 1,000 movies. Like, I don't
That's
have
a
time
lot.
for that."
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I came up with this idea, and I said to Susan, I was like, "What if we did a podcast? I want to do a horror movie podcast, but what if the whole point of the podcast was figuring out what classification it would be other than horror? So like, it's a horror movie, but then what is it about the movie that's scary?" So we came up with these classifications, and so the whole point is
Mm-hmm.
we discuss the movie, and then we debate what category should it fall into, and then I actually update our spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet's now 2,000 movies.
Nice.
Um,
Nice. That's a
so that
long list. A crazy
it's a
long list.
long, and there's still like so many. I still come across movies where I'm like, oh, I saw that, and it's not on here, and I'll like add it. But yeah,
Nice.
there's a lot of horror movies out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask you like what is your favorite movie, horror movie, and also what is your favorite horror game?
Oh man. So my favorite, let's see. I think actually I have the spreadsheet right here because I'm a
Yeah,
nerd. Um Man, I don't know. There's so many amazing horror movies. I don't know if I have like a singular favorite.
mm-hmm.
I love, well, we actually just our episode that's airing tomorrow is about this movie called As Above So Below. I don't have you seen that? Do you
No,
watch
no.
horror movies?
Yeah, I do watch horror movies, but there's so many, a lot of indies
Yeah.
too. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So As Above So Below is like this amazing, it's really scary, but what's great about it is it's got this really sort of Indiana Jones Tomb Raider feel to it where it almost like if someone didn't tell you it was a horror movie, you'd be like 2/3 into it before you realized it was going to become really scary.
yeah.
And I love movies like that. You know, Poltergeist, Halloween. I love The Thing. The Thing is a fantastic. I love like all of John Carpenter's movies,
Mm-hmm.
Prince of Darkness, things like that. Horror games, yeah, man. I'm telling you, there are horror games I've played where like probably my favorite is Alan Wake. I'd say I love
Oh my
absolutely
god, huge fan of that game. Huge
such
fan.
a great movie.
Yeah,
But like I remember playing I've suddenly forgotten the name of the series. It was the one that had Alice in it. Oh God,
Alice.
what is it called? It was like this little girl who was like possessed, and you went in and you were like part of this team that was. I got it for the life of me. I can't remember it.
Was that
All
from?
right.
No, that was not EA. I can't remember. It came out during the 360 days.
Yes.
Yes, Alice. Oh my god, now I can't remember either.
I get it's so funny because it was a shooter,
Yeah.
but it was like really scary. And the funny story is, I was living in Colorado at the time, and we had just finished our basement, and we had speakers, and the speakers had surround sound in the ceiling, and I wasn't used to that. And I remember one night, it's like all the lights are off. I'm in my basement. It's pitch black. Everybody's asleep,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm playing the game, and I hear this like noise, like movement or whispering, and I pause the game, and I was like, what the hell is that? And then I start playing some more, and I hear it again, and I pause it, And I did that for like seriously 10 minutes before I realized it was actually audio from the movie, from the game,
Yeah.
in like the surround sound, and it was just freaking. It was like deliberately trying to screw with me.
I love that.
I know, but like I remember playing the game, and I was like, when
Yeah.
I finally got to a level where like the scary part was over, I actually had like a knot in my stomach where I was like, oh, thank God! Like I just need to stop playing this for a while.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name. I'll probably will find out after we finish recording, I bet. But
Yeah, God,
yeah,
it kills
like
me.
I love Fear. I love Alan Wake. Alan Wake is by far my favorite one. And actually, the Medium. Have you tried the Medium? They just came out
You
recently.
know, it's funny. I haven't played it yet. I interviewed them. So one of the things, one of the consulting jobs I have is with Unreal Engine for Epic,
Hmm.
and I interviewed them about the game before it came out, about the horror movie aesthetic, and like, yeah, it was. I love their answers. The way they talked about trying to set the mood,
Hmm.
uh, for it, and so I want to play it. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
really good. I think I find it fun. I mean, there were some puzzles that was a little bit frustrating, but besides that, I really enjoyed it. I didn't find it
um,
scary, like other games, but it was just fun, in my opinion.
by the way, the game was Fear. That's what it was.
Fear. Oh, so it was Fear. All right, all right.
Yeah, and
But
that is such.
there was a
When
game called Alice. I just can't remember.
No, so Fear, I think in Fear, one like as the game progressed, I think
Hmm.
one of the people in it was that girl, and maybe I'm wrong. I thought her name was Alice, but I'm going from memory.
It was
So
Fear. Fear. Yeah,
Alma, it was Alma. Her name was
yeah,
Alma.
yeah, yeah. That game was
But
creepy
man,
as hell.
oh my
Ooh,
God,
that game was
yeah.
creepy.
Ooh,
Part two was rough. I was like, oh man, this is
I know.
good.
It was either two or three where I was like, I had to take breaks because it was like
Yeah,
making me so anxious. I was like feeling sick to my
yeah.
stomach. I was like, I gotta stop.
You know which one too? It was really good. Death Space Part One and Two was really good.
Oh
Three
yeah,
was okay, but yeah, good
fantastic.
games.
I would love them to turn Dead Space into a movie. I think that is would be such a great movie.
Hmm.
And I don't typically I'm not that guy who likes to have video games turned into movies,
Hmm.
but I think horror games on some level work better as movies because of like they're very narrative and they're very structured, and like there's something about horror movies that are more interactive, I think, than most movies. You get
Hmm.
scared, you like hide when you're watching it and stuff
Scream.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you scream.
yeah, definitely. I want to ask you a question about Unreal Engine and working with Epic Games and stuff. But yeah, I was watching a lot of the horror movies, especially a lot of indie ones through Shutter, the app.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Shutter's great.
Shudder's really good. So for those who are listening, make sure to check it out. It's really awesome. So any
Yeah,
any
it's
any movies you would like to recommend from there from Shudder that is available that you've seen?
yeah, gosh, there was one that we just talked about that I think just went to Shutter. Gosh, I'm not gonna remember off the top of my head. The thing about Shutter that's cool is, yeah. So in my mind, you
Hmm.
get Shutter if you're like into horror movies because it's essentially Netflix, but everything is horror.
Hmm.
So it's like,
Hmm.
and like the other thing that's really cool about it is they have the ability for you to, they have basically like a live channel. So if you kind of, I don't know how you are, but I sometimes like, sometimes I don't want to watch a movie, but when I'm flicking around on TV and there's a movie halfway through it, I'll like just put it on.
Yeah.
And so that live channel does that where you're like, oh, there's this thing, like, they're watching, they're playing, one of the Halloweens, and it's like 2/3 the way through, and it's like, I'll just leave it on and watch it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they have some really good. Oh, you know what's really good? Uh, Scare Me. Have you
Scare
heard
Me.
about that?
Yes, I watched it. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
Yeah,
god!
it was
Oh
really
my
good.
god!
It was really
It was
good.
so good. Yeah, so we have sometimes we have guests on the podcast, and we had the guy who co-starred, and wrote, and I guess directed that
Hmm.
on. He was a great guest, but like, holy cow, what a great movie! Because there's only one setting,
Yeah.
and it's driven entirely by the acting, and the acting is so good.
Hmm.
It's such a great movie.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoyed watching it. Man. That came out last year, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like in the fall, like
Yeah.
November.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it watching. It was really good. Really good.
very
Now,
good.
now
Excellent.
back to games.
Yeah.
Unreal Engine. You mentioned that you worked with Epic Games and everything. So how was that, and what is it you've been working on with them, Epic
Yeah,
Games?
so basically, I'm doing writing. I don't call it journalism simply because there's a different. I'm writing for them,
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, but they're very great. They're great to work with, and basically they just have me interviewing developers, and I write their stories, and it shows up on their website, on the Unreal Engine website. And so I get to interview folks. I do some copy editing too, but it's more fun to like do interviews. So like I
Mm-hmm.
did something on the Medium. I did a piece on gosh, what is that game? I'm so bad with names. Um,
Take your time.
it, it's a PS5 game. It's obviously it has well, not obviously, but it hasn't come out yet. It was delayed to next year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's by this studio that did.
Outriders?
No, it's
No.
do you remember that studio that did the Ocarina of Time like fan film?
Fan film. Oh my god. Kind of. Kind
Yeah, they
of.
did. It was like you got to go if you haven't seen it, you've got to go watch it because it is like crazy how good it is.
Okay.
Um, Anyway, they are now doing they're working on this game, and I for the life of me I'm blanking on what it's called, but it's a thing that has the little blobs. They look like little blobs of tar almost, and
Mm-hmm.
you're in the it's like it's on the tip of my tongue.
Nah, it's
Uh,
okay. It's okay, man.
uh I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure it out right now.
Take your
It's not
time. That's
not
what happens.
Stray.
See, that happens when you work with so many projects. It's hard to remember everything, man. So
I know that's the problem. I'm gonna go to Unreal Engine's website. That's what I'm gonna do
yeah,
while
there
we're
you
talking.
go. There you go. I was gonna ask you. You also covered the new engine too for them.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, but that's a lot of what this is. So a lot of this stuff, either they're using the new engine or aspects of it. It's by the way, it's Kenya Bridge of Spirits. Do you remember
Bridge
that?
of Spirits. Okay, no, I can't
Yeah, you
remember
should check it out. It's got a lot of buzz. It looks amazing, and like the team that is working on it is just this crazy. It's Ember Lab,
that. Mm-hmm.
and they're the ones who did this. It was a Majora Mask. That's what it was. Majora's Mask. Terrible Fate was this animated short they did. They did another short that was just this. It was like a live action mini movie called Dust
Mm-hmm.
that they created. That's like just this cool thing they created for fun. It has nothing to do with video games or any other property.
Mm-hmm.
Just some original thing they created that's just looks amazing. Um, it's crazy what people can do now without the backing of a studio.
Yeah, yeah. That's crazy. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I was gonna ask you about that, about like the games that you covered. So you say the medium and that one. Was there any other ones too that you covered too for?
Well, so I do. I'm doing a regular series for them on sort of what next gen is like. So I did one on where I interviewed a bunch of excuse me notable developers and thinkers. So like gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head all the people that were in it. There were a lot, but like Tracy Fullerton, I don't know if you've ever spoken with her. She's at
Mm-mm.
USC Games Program. She's the one who helped make or made Walden Pond, which is based on the book,
Mm-hmm.
and one would think is not a good topic for a game, but actually really is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like she's in it, Naomi Clark and Ian Bogust and a bunch of other people. I basically talked to them about like where they see gaming headed. So I have a regular series that runs on there that's sort of about that, like what the future of gaming is going to look like.
Yeah. What is the future gaming for you, man? Like what your thoughts like with everything? I mean, journalism has changed a lot. Of now there's way more content creators more than ever, and just next gen consoles. Like, what are your thoughts about that now for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really at an interesting moment in time where there's a lot going on. Um, I think that cloud gaming is still going to be a huge deal, despite what happened with Stadia.
Mm-hmm.
Though I think Stadia is really they just cut down their or stopped their game studios. I mean, they're still obviously Google's still invested in Stadia,
Mm-hmm.
but like all the stuff going on with cloud gaming and the fact that you can now game on anything, like the fact that I could play, uh, Cyberpunk on my iPhone is crazy.
It's
Like
crazy. That is crazy.
it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And being able to like even if I want to play that game on my computer using any of the streaming services, I can just hop into it. I don't have to download it. I don't have to screw around with settings. You just click on it and it's playable in like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is amazing. I still think obviously there's space for consoles and for PCs and all the other platforms, but like that's the thing. Like having all of these options, it's like this cornucopia of gaming now. It's like we're in this golden age that I think people are going to look back at and be like, wow, like they had it good.
Yeah, I play a lot of S Cloud from my phone through the Android device, which is amazing. I
Oh,
play a lot of I play Gears, Halo, Minecraft Dungeons, like games like that from Game Pass through there, and it plays perfectly, man. Smooth.
I know.
Yeah,
It's great.
through a
And
5G connection.
that's the thing. 5G, when 5G gets a little broader, and like I still don't really have that in my area, but
Hmm.
like when I can, like when I'm waiting to meet with somebody and I can just whip out my phone and start playing like the next Mass Effect, that's gonna be crazy.
That is gonna be crazy. Yeah, yeah. What advice you would give to up and coming journalists? Because right now it's very competitive, man. It's very hard to get a job in the industry. What
Yeah.
like the best advice you would give them? Because there's so many out there.
I mean, it's like I think the main thing is you've got to just keep writing. Like the best way I think to get a job in game journalism is,
Hmm.
I mean, not necessarily have clips, but just show that you can write. And the good news is anybody now can start a blog. It doesn't mean you'll make money doing this. So,
Hmm.
obviously that's obviously a huge issue, but you can at least work on your skill. You can kind of improve yourself by writing. And I think the more you write and the more you listen to what people say about your writing, not people who are obnoxious, but like people who read it and maybe point something out, the more you learn and grow, the better you get at it. So it's like anything. It's like learning a musical instrument. You just need to practice.
Yeah. What is for you the biggest highlight in your career out of everything that you've done in gaming?
Oh man. I mean, being able to be a part of the formative years, early years of Kotaku and Polygon, definitely rank up there. Like,
Hmm.
um, you know, it's so cool. It's so funny because like we were talking about this at the beginning, where you don't when you're in the middle of it, especially when you're like the editor in chief, like you don't have the time to stop what you're doing and look around and see what you've accomplished. So like my whole time there, and I think a lot of the people who are in the business of like building up sites,
Hmm.
you're not paying attention to the daily grind. You're not paying attention to like how big it's gotten. You're just focused on what has to be done in the next 10 minutes. Um, so it's kind of nice to be able to look back at that. And more importantly, like just see how things have changed so much. Um, I think it's been fun just to be a part of game journalism because, it has grown and become so different and, so much better, I think, over the last 2 or 3 decades.
That's cool. Your family is Cuban, right?
Part of them,
Part
yes. My
part.
my my grandfather was born in Cuba, and came here. Gosh, when would it have been? It would have been a long time ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's since passed away, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's Cuban, and yeah, I was fortunate enough when I was at Polygon under Chris Grant to convince him to give me the budget to go to Cuba, and I spent some time there and did a bunch of reporting on the gaming scene in Cuba, which I have to say, actually, now that I think about it, that's probably the highlight of my career. Going to Cuba, I didn't have the ability, the time to go visit where my grandfather grew up. He was orphaned. He was brought up by a monk
Mm-hmm.
in a church in a small town in Santiago and near Santiago, and told used to tell me these amazing stories. He was a wildcat. He did some crazy things. He blew up the church bell with a homemade bomb.
Oh my
Just
God.
not on purpose. He just was trying to. He was having fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Screwed up, and he used to like. I remember he told me this story of like biking into town, and like they didn't have stoplights, so you would honk before you went through the light or through the intersection, and
Yeah.
like I think a car hit him and knocked him off his bike. And he had like yelled before he went through the intersection. And so he got up, this little kid, he got up and got in the face of the driver and was like, I honked before I went through the intersection.
That's the I'm very happy that you managed to go over there to Cuba and get to see like the gaming scene over there, because I know there's a developer that's been working on the game there for a very long time, and even the esports scene is
Oh
slowly
yeah.
is slowly getting bigger and bigger over there in Cuba. And the reason why I mentioned that I'm happy you did that is because a lot of those people in those countries, they feel left out and they are part of our community,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you did that. that you managed to talk about the scene over there just a little bit. So I hope we get to see more of that in the future too from other journalists.
Yeah, I mean it's great. I think that there are sites that do it. Polygon was for a while. We had people going to different countries and doing it. I think it's died down a little for some reason, but I
Hmm.
think it's super important. And like I was fortunate in that not only could I do that as a journalist, but like as a person who like I've always wanted to go to Cuba because of my grandfather. I've always wanted to see firsthand what Havana was like, and like being able to spend days there. I didn't stay in a hotel. I stayed in a house, and just I literally was with I basically I hired I don't speak Spanish unfortunately.
Hmm.
I hired a translator and hired a guide, and then we had a car, and like from the moment I woke up to the moment I crashed on my bed and went to sleep, and it was like 14-hour days. I was just meeting people and doing interviews, and man, I'll remember that for the rest of my life. It was so amazing finding all these people and talking to them, and I went over there right when
Hmm.
Legend of Zelda come out on the Switch, Breath of the
Okay.
Wild, and
Okay.
I brought the Switch with me. I think it hadn't been released yet. I think I had like an early build because I think the Switch maybe hadn't even come out, and I brought it with me. And so after all my interviews, I was letting them play the games, and then a bunch of them, actually, a bunch of people I had met, I had them come to this cafe near this house where I was staying. And the last night I was there, and I just was like, "Here's my Switch. Just play as much as you want." And they were just like blown away because like you don't you can't buy games in Cuba. They have to be smuggled in.
Hmm.
Um, and so they knew it was going to be a while. But that was such a fun moment. Like,
And
here
seeing
I
that
am.
and seeing that in person, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it was great. Like watching them play the game and like just being so happy and like being able to, hang out with them and like have some rum and cokes and some delicious food and like play games. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. But I'll say this though, man, we need more Latinos in this industry too, man. And I'm glad that I've been noticing people of color getting a lot of attention now and getting the spotlight for the past couple of years now, which is good. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I think it's funny. It's like it's weird. I have conversations with people every once in a while,
hmm.
and I never really know how to deal with it. I actually never deal with it typically, but where people will say things like I'm a cis white male, and I'm like, well, yes, I am, but I'm also Latin,
Hmm.
and I don't know, I have Cuban descent, and I don't know how to deal with that because
Hmm.
I am a cis white male, but I think that's also um, it's removing an aspect of culture that shouldn't be removed. That obviously Latinx, I think,
Hmm.
in general, it's an important culture that should be represented, and people shouldn't sort of forget that that is out there and exists.
Yeah,
Obviously.
yeah, no, definitely. Anything else, Brian? You want to we'll talk about? You want to promote before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's it. I just wanted to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
say hi to you. I think have I ever been on this show? Was
Not
I on this show?
ever. We
That's
talk. I
crazy.
see you back in the days. I'll see you a lot, like at events or at E3, and we'll say hi, and that's it. That's about it. But this is the first time we actually sat down and talked. Like it was a great conversation. I think it was cool. Because this. I want people to know more about you as a person. Like your
Thank you.
career, some cool stories. That about the Cuban story. I had no idea that you went there and you covered that. So it was cool hearing
You
that from
should
you.
this is what I'll promote. Even though I no longer work at Polygon and I wrote this story like 5 years ago,
Yeah.
go find that story. All you have to do is I think Cuba Gaming and you'll find it. And it's like 6 or 7 stories, bunch of photos. Check it out because I think it deserves to be read, not because I wrote it necessarily, but because it's a fascinating glimpse into this culture that it I loved going there and it was fun, but part of it made me sad because they are sort of they can't go online and play with people in other countries. There's no internet connection where you
Hmm.
can play. Like they have the esports scene is a great example. I have a whole story about it where I talked to the guy. I went and met this guy in his house, the best StarCraft player in the country, and he's like, you know, if you're not watching a video, I'm putting my hands up like I'm shrugging.
Yeah.
But he's like, there's nothing he can do. He's like, he topped out. There's nobody for him to play against who's as good as him, and he can't leave the country to play professionally, and he can't get online to play with anybody. So he's kind of like, what do I do? And that's sad.
Yeah, that is sad. That is sad. Yeah, I hope it changes in the future, man. It slowly is
Me
getting
too.
better, after COVID,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
so
Right. Yeah.
yeah. No, but
Totally.
Brian, thanks a lot, man. And make sure to subscribe to the Lego podcast. What's the name of the official name? The Lego?
Oh, it's Bits and N Bricks. So the letter N. Bits and Bricks is the Lego podcast, and Long-Legged Beasties is the horror movie
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Definitely gotta listen to that too. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah. Awesome, Brian. But thanks a lot, man, for the talk. And hopefully we could do more of this in the future, man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, and I'm happy you're relocated to
Yes.
sunny LA,
Even though I'm now outside, I've been stuck in an apartment for like 2+ months.
as the rest of us.
All right, cool. All right, thanks, man.